If you really feel like the larger idea of the song or whatever needs a different kind of a thing than you got, find a different snare, record a different snare, sample a different snare, do what you got to do, but like you will waste your time and you will limit things if you try to fit them down into shapes and forms that they're not supposed to go down into. Never gets old. I do. Kush After Hours. Gregory Scott. Today's topic: don't try to make the thing something it's not. The thing in this case, in this form, in this show, probably a song, production, a sound. But really it's an idea. Ideas, I'm going to say this is my disclaimer. I actually believe this shit. What I'm about to say to you, I fully believe it, and I try to live it. Ideas are entities. They are living things. I don't know if they're beings, whatever they are, however you want to. They're a form of life. And as such, they move, they shift, they have desires is how I would frame it. That's because I'm a human, right? I think about things like this. I don't know if they have desires the way that we do, but like they certainly seem to have direction and purpose and intent. And here's why I'm saying this. Because like us, I think, like all living things, they want to have a form. They're in a sort of non-physical plane. And they want to be in the physical plane. Now, let's say, hey, you know those cars people are driving around in? You could make a long conveyor belt and long lines of chains and line people up along that. And every person could just do one step in the process. And you could build a car step by step by step all along this long line and just churn them out by the tens or the hundreds or the thousands or the millions. Right? And thus was born Ford Auto. Henry Ford didn't invent the car. He invented a process. Did he invent it? I don't know. An idea certainly occurred to him. Was that his idea? Did he have an idea? Or did an idea come to him and come through him? The interesting thing about ideas throughout history, you may note, is that when you go back in time, maybe, 500 years to the 1600s, and you look to Isaac Newton, people of that era. But anywhere in history that there's been like a thing, a little revolution, a little idea that's occurred and has spawned some kind of big change for humanity. It happened here on the globe, and it also happened over here on the globe. Kind of at the same time. And these two people, cultures, whatever, were not in communication. Not in a way that would have allowed this idea to hop to the... And then, just as often, it also happened like up here. Boop, boop, boop. In a really tight sequence. And the idea took slightly different forms, but it was kind of the same big idea. And it occurred around the globe at around the same time. I do not think that's a coincidence. And it's happened over and over and over and over. Whether you talk about mathematics and the sciences, whether you're talking about philosophy, religion, whatever. Why am I talking about this on this show about music production? One of the ways that I used to get hung up in my process with making art was I would spend an inordinate amount of time, I would waste an inordinate amount of time trying to make a sound, something that it couldn't be made into what I wanted it to be. I had an agenda. And the idea, the sound, it had a different agenda. It wanted to be something else. It wanted to be what it was. It wanted to be a fuller expression of itself. And I wanted it to be whatever narrower thing I wanted it to be. A lot of times that would be like, I wanted it to be a vintage sounding fatback snare. But the snare that I had recorded wasn't that. Or the snare that I'd played, the way that I played it, or the shape of the music around it. Like, it couldn't be that. And I could try to hammer it. I could try to mold that thing into that shape that I wanted. And a lot of times I was marginally successful at that. But it was like that cartoonish thing that I've talked about before. Like it just sort of was like that, but it really wasn't. And as a result, everything I think was limited. So I want you to pay attention to whether or not you might be doing that with your snare sound or your guitar part or your synth preset or the arrangement of the song itself. Maybe you want the song to be you want a spacious song that's got all this depth and width, and you can hear the reverb tails for 12 seconds. And maybe the song wants to be densely layered and highly compressed and tightly packed, or the other way around. Maybe it's something like that. This is tricky when you're making your own art, when you're working with other artists. It's tricky to try to get outside of your own perspective and be able to, A, remember to ask yourself, and then B, successfully ask yourself, and then C, hear the freaking answer to the question. What does this thing actually want? Ask that all the time, making music with Sneaky Little Devil and Sarah. And I'm like, yeah, I know I want this major 7 chord here. And I know you want something a little bit more dissonant and rubby. That's all great. But wait, what does this song actually want here? And a lot of times the only way that I can get to that is just by riffing, just experimenting, trying 10,000 different things until you just get that feeling. It's like, oh. And more often than not, I'm surprised. The more space I give myself and the more ideas that I try, calling from many different directions, I can really be surprised at what it ends up actually wanting. And I'm like, holy shit, this is what you want? Okay. Like I'm in conversation with the music and I'm like, okay, here we go. Why I think this is extra important is because ideas in my head, as they float around in the ethers, and they want to get in. They want to get into this playground, right? We got in here. So it could be a lot of fun. If only we would remember that we're in a playground and we can have a lot of fun here. And fun isn't always fun. Let me be clear about that. Sometimes fun is a freaking slog. And still, it's play. There's a lot of room for play here. But these ideas are trying to get through it, right? And they're just searching. They're just scanning, and they're zipping around. They're moving all over the globe. They're looking at all the people's skulls and their auras, or I don't know. I have no idea what the process is. That's not my business. But they'll spot these little cracks in the dam. They'll be like, I think I can get through there. And they'll come in, and that's when we, you're taking a shower, you're doing the dishes, you're driving down the road, you're in conversation with your boss, and then blick, this idea pops into the back of your head. And you notice it, you hear it, and you're like, huh. And at that point in time, some part of us and the idea start having a conversation. And this doesn't have to be conscious. It can be conscious, but it usually isn't. And the idea is like, here's what I got in mind. I'm thinking about blah, 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 blah. And the back of our brain's like, oh, well, here's what I'm thinking. Blah, 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 right? And they're chit-chatting with each other. And then one of two things will happen. They'll either come to an agreement, like, you know what, we can do business together. Let's try this out. Or they won't. The brain will be like, that's not interesting to me. Or the idea will be like, I don't like what you're saying. I'm out of here. It's gone. Sometimes we're not even aware that whole thing has happened. Sometimes we're very aware that it's happened. And sometimes that's happened, and the agreement has happened, and the idea has been moved to a different part of our brain where we can actually, consciously converse with it or notice it. And a lot of times we'll reject the idea. We'll just be like some other part of us will say no. And I think those things can be a bit of a bummer, because I think if the back of our brain lets an idea in, there's probably something there worth thinking about, not just out rejecting it. But also the flip side could be a little bit dangerous. A lot of times an idea will occur to us, and we're the type of person, or we're in the kind of habit where we just say yes to too many ideas. Like, that's a great idea. That's my next big thing. And then we get on this train. And the problem with that is that we've had these 12 other great ideas, and then they fall off the side. We don't complete them. And now we're on with this idea. And the same thing's probably going to happen again then. We're going to have another idea, and before we get to finish this one, so there's an art to learning how many things we can say yes to and the things that we should say yes to. So, moving along this esoteric train here. You got an idea. Maybe it's a great idea. Many of them are not, but many of them are. And especially when there's a really good click between our skill sets and our potentials and the idea, like the ideas that come into us that click into our existing skills, but also there's all this space for us to grow with it because, ideas are bigger than us. They can be. They want to be. That's where a lot of magic can happen. And so here's the danger. Here's the thing. One of the things I want you to be aware of in life, with music, with the art, with everything. Ideas are not monogamous. As I've noted before, even the best, most rarefied esoteric ideas that only a few humans on Earth at any given time could possibly even comprehend, let alone pursue, that idea found a few different people because it's hedging its bets. And if it pops up in 3 places in history, odds are it actually had a conversation with like 20 geniuses, and 3 of them managed to go all the way with it and make their mark in history. And I tell you this because the idea is always assessing. It's watching. It's like, all right, we had an agreement. And it knows when we're not really in harmony with the agreement. It knows when we are changing the terms. It knows when we're backsliding. It knows when we're slacking off. And at some point, if it's had enough, it will eject. It will abandon you. And the inspiration will leave, and you'll have this thing where it just seems so great at the beginning, and then, a lot of times you just experience that as, I'm just not feeling it anymore, bro. And it's like, maybe that's what's happening, but maybe the idea is like, you man, I'm out of here. I'm off the plate with somebody who's willing to actually follow through. So, limit the number of ideas that you agree to in life. Learn which ones you really ought to be plugging into. Like, it's got something to offer you and you've got something to offer it, and it's a win-win kind of partnership. Try to follow through on those things. And then along the way, don't try to make it something it's not. And I just get back to the snare because I'm always trying to make my snares something they're not. And I just even to this day, I'm a grizzled old man at this point in time doing this. I'm sitting here telling you not to do it, and I will still catch myself doing it, being like, wait a minute, why am I trying to put so much 4K into this snare? It doesn't have any 4K. It doesn't want 4K. It's a donk kind of snare. Embrace it. That's what it wants to be. If you really feel like the larger idea of the song or whatever needs a different kind of a thing than you got, find a different snare, record a different snare, sample a different snare, do what you got to do, but you will waste your time and you will limit things if you try to fit them down into shapes and forms that they're not supposed to go down into. And the more you can just pull back and just play with stuff and experiment and be curious. I love that word, curious. Be curious. What the hell? When I first go to mix a song, it will often come out of my mouth like, what the hell do you want to be? I'll be looking at the speakers and I'm just like, because I don't know. And I just start moving around. I know that it's a thing I've read on forums. You'll hear other YouTubers talking about this, having a vision for the mix. You got to have a vision for the mix, man. You got to know when you sit down. You got to understand what you're doing. How can you get there if you don't know in advance what it is you're going for? And I'm like, God bless them if that works for them. And I'm sure it does. If they're saying it, I'm sure it works for them. I'm saying to you, that does not work for me. I just got to push and pull and stretch and bend and plug in, try it. No, it's not what it needs. No, it's not what it needs. Maybe I don't even need to be working on this sound. Maybe I should work on this sound over here. No, that's not what it needs. I will flounder sometimes for a half an hour, 2 hours later. I'm still just like, what is this mix? What do you want from me? And at some point, I'll hear it. I'll feel it. I'll hear it. I'll be like, oh, what just happened? Just, man. And then I'm like, I'm in. That's the first step. And then slowly, like dominoes. They just start falling, chick, 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 and then if they stop falling, probably time to stop for the day. Take a break, whatever, some coffee. Love coffee. Make of that what you will. Good luck with whatever you're working on. Stick with it. And, yeah,